Be me, John, a 35-year-old husband who's been through a grueling divorce process. Married to my high school sweetheart, Emily, for 10 years, but it's been a loveless marriage for the past 5. We have a 7-year-old daughter, Sarah, who's the light of my life. Emily and I have been fighting over custody and assets for what feels like an eternity. Finally, the day of the divorce court ruling arrives, and I'm nervous as hell. I sit in the courtroom, fidgeting with my tie as I wait for the judge to enter. Emily's sitting across from me, looking like the epitome of innocence in her white blouse and pearl necklace. I can feel my blood boiling just looking at her. Judge walks in, a no-nonsense look on his face. This court is now in session. The case before us today is the divorce of John and Emily. After careful consideration of all the evidence presented, I am ready to deliver my ruling. I take a deep breath, trying to calm my nerves. I've got a good lawyer, and I'm confident that I've got a strong case. But you never know what's going to happen in court. Regarding custody of the minor child, Sarah, I hereby grant joint custody to both parents. However, I am awarding primary physical custody to John. I feel a surge of relief and excitement. I've been fighting for this, and it's a huge win for me. I glance over at Emily, who's looking like she's been punched in the gut. Furthermore, regarding the division of assets, I hereby order that the marital home be sold and the proceeds split 60/40 in favor of John. I can feel my eyes widening in shock. I wasn't expecting that. I look over at my lawyer, who's trying to stifle a smile. And finally, regarding spousal support, I hereby order that Emily pay John $2,000 per month for the next 24 months. The courtroom erupts into chaos. Emily's screaming, her lawyers objecting, and I'm just sitting there, trying to process what's happening. Can't believe it, I'm actually getting a good deal out of this divorce. Feel a mix of emotions, relief, excitement, and a little bit of guilt. Look over at Emily, who's still ranting and raving. Think to myself, you should have thought of that before you decided to cheat on me and drain our bank account. The judge bangs his gavel, trying to restore order to the courtroom. Order. I said, order. This court is adjourned. As the judge's gavel fell, the room slowly began to quiet down, with Emily's angry sobs being the last to fade away. I couldn't help but feel a sense of vindication, knowing that the court had finally seen the truth and was holding her accountable for her actions. My lawyer, Mr. Thompson, turned to me with a smile and whispered, "I told you we had a strong case, John. You're going to come out of this just fine." I nodded, still trying to process the mix of emotions swirling inside me. As I glanced over at Emily, I couldn't help but think about how far we'd fallen. We were once in love, or at least I thought we were. But the memories of our relationship were now tainted by the pain and betrayal she'd caused me. You should have thought of that before you decided to cheat on me and drain our bank account, I thought to myself, feeling a familiar sting of anger and resentment. The courtroom doors swung open, and the bailiff called out, "Court is adjourned." The room erupted into a flurry of activity as people began to file out. My lawyer patted me on the back and said, "Let's get out of here, John. We've got some paperwork to sign, and then you can start moving on with your life." As we made our way out of the courtroom, I caught sight of Emily's lawyer, Mrs. Johnson, trying to console her. Emily's face was red and puffy from crying, and her eyes were blazing with anger. She shot me a venomous glance, and I could almost hear her thinking, "This isn't over, John." I just smiled to myself, knowing that I'd finally come out on top. Once we were outside the courtroom, Mr. Thompson turned to me and said, "You know, John, this is just the beginning. We'll need to work on dividing up the remaining assets and making sure the spousal support payments are set up. But for now, let's just take a moment to breathe and enjoy this small victory." I nodded, feeling a sense of relief wash over me. "Yeah, let's do that." I took a deep breath, savoring the cool air filling my lungs. It was a new beginning, and I was ready to start this new chapter of my life. As we walked out of the courthouse, I couldn't help but wonder what the future held, but for the first time in a long time, I felt a sense of hope and excitement. "Hey, Mr. Thompson," I said, turning to my lawyer. "Yes, John. What's the first thing I should do now?" Mr. Thompson smiled and clapped me on the back. "Well, John, I think you should go out and celebrate. You've earned it. And then, tomorrow, we'll start working on the details. But for tonight, just enjoy the fact that you're finally free." I grinned, feeling a weight lift off my shoulders. That sounds like a plan. As I walked out of the courthouse, the warm sunlight on my skin felt like a welcome hug. I took a deep breath, feeling the stress and anxiety of the past few months start to melt away. Mr. Thompson's words echoed in my mind, "You're finally free." It was a simple phrase, but it held so much weight. I felt like I could finally exhale, like I'd been holding my breath for years. I looked over at Mr. Thompson, who was smiling at me with a sense of pride and satisfaction. "You know, John, I have to say, I'm impressed," he said, as we walked down the steps of the courthouse. "You've been through a tough time, but you've come out stronger on the other side. That takes a lot of courage." I felt a surge of gratitude towards him. He'd been more than just a lawyer to me, he'd been a friend, a confidant, and a guiding light in a dark time. "Thanks, Mr. Thompson," I said, my voice a little choked with emotion. "I couldn't have done it without you." We reached the bottom of the steps, and Mr. Thompson clapped me on the back again. "Now, go celebrate," he said, with a smile. "You've earned it. And don't worry about the details, we'll sort everything out tomorrow." I nodded, feeling a sense of excitement and anticipation. I had no idea what the future held, but for the first time in a long time, I felt like I had a sense of control over my life. I was free to make my own choices, to forge my own path. As I walked away from the courthouse, I felt a sense of wonder and curiosity. What would I do first? Would I go out and buy a new car, or take a trip somewhere? The possibilities seemed endless, and I felt like a kid on Christmas morning, eager to unwrap all the presents. I pulled out my phone and dialed a number, my heart racing with excitement. "Hey, Sarah," I said, when my friend answered. "It's over. The divorce is final." There was a pause on the other end of the line, and then Sarah let out a whoop of excitement. "Oh my God, John, congratulations. We need to celebrate. What do you want to do tonight?" I grinned, feeling a sense of joy and freedom that I hadn't felt in years. "I don't know," I said, "but I'm open to suggestions. What did you have in mind?" "How about we go out for dinner and drinks?" Sarah suggested. "We can try out that new restaurant that just opened up downtown." I thought for a moment, and then nodded, even though she couldn't see me. "That sounds perfect," I said. "I'll meet you there at 7. "Sounds like a plan," Sarah said, and we hung up. As I walked to my car, I felt a sense of excitement and anticipation building inside me. I had no idea what the future held, but I was ready to face it head-on. I was ready to start this new chapter of my life, and to see what wonders and challenges it would bring. As I drove to the restaurant, I couldn't help but think about the journey that had brought me to this moment. The long, arduous process of divorce, the sleepless nights, the endless arguments, and the countless tears. It had been a draining experience, but it had also been a transformative one. I had emerged from the ashes of my failed marriage like a phoenix, stronger, wiser, and more resilient. I pulled into the parking lot of the restaurant, a trendy new spot in the heart of downtown. The sign above the door read, "Bistro Bliss," and the exterior was sleek and modern, with large windows and a chic awning. I felt a thrill of excitement as I stepped out of the car and onto the pavement. I was really doing this. I was starting anew. As I walked towards the entrance, I spotted Sarah waiting for me outside. She was dressed in a bright yellow sundress, her long brown hair tied up in a ponytail, and a huge smile plastered on her face. "Hey, divorcee," she exclaimed, throwing her arms around me. "You look like a weight has been lifted off your shoulders." "I feel like it has," I replied, hugging her back. "It's like I can finally breathe again." We walked into the restaurant, and were immediately greeted by the hostess, a friendly young woman with a warm smile. "Welcome to Bistro Bliss. Right this way, please." She led us to a cozy table by the window, and we sat down, perusing the menus. As we ordered our drinks and food, Sarah couldn't stop grinning at me. "I'm so proud of you, John," she said, her eyes shining with tears. "You've been through so much, and you've come out the other side. You deserve to celebrate." I felt a lump form in my throat as I looked at her. "Thanks, Sarah," I said, my voice choked with emotion. "I don't know what I would have done without you. You've been my rock throughout all of this." Our drinks arrived, and we clinked glasses. "To new beginnings," Sarah said, smiling. "To new beginnings," I repeated, taking a sip of my whiskey. The smooth, rich liquid burned its way down my throat, and I felt a sense of warmth spread through my chest. As we waited for our food to arrive, we chatted and laughed, enjoying each other's company. I felt carefree, like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. I was finally free to be myself, to make my own decisions, and to forge my own path. The food arrived, and we dug in, savoring the delicious flavors and textures. I had ordered the grilled salmon, and it was cooked to perfection, with a crispy crust on the outside and a tender, flaky interior. Sarah had opted for the vegetarian quinoa bowl, and she declared it amazing. As we ate, we talked about our plans for the future. Sarah was considering a new job, one that would allow her to travel more and pursue her passion for photography. I was thinking about taking up hiking again, something I had loved to do before my marriage, but had given up due to my ex-wife's lack of interest. The conversation flowed easily, and before I knew it, we had been at the restaurant for hours. The sun had set, casting a warm orange glow over the city, and the stars were beginning to twinkle in the sky. I felt grateful for this new chapter in my life, and for the friends who would be by my side as I navigated it. As we finished our meal and prepared to leave, Sarah turned to me with a mischievous glint in her eye. "You know what we need to do now," she said, a sly smile spreading across her face. "What's that?" I asked, intrigued. "We need to go out and paint the town red," she said, her voice full of excitement. "We need to celebrate your newfound freedom, and show the world what you're made of." I grinned, feeling a sense of anticipation build inside me. "Let's do it," I said, standing up and tossing a few bucks on the table. "Let's go out and make some memories." As we stepped out of the restaurant, the cool evening air hit me like a refreshing slap in the face, snapping me out of the lethargy that had settled in during my marriage. I took a deep breath, feeling the excitement build up inside me like a pent-up storm about to unleash its fury. Sarah grasped my arm, her eyes sparkling with mischief, and led me down the sidewalk. "First things first, we need to get you looking the part," she said, stopping in front of a small boutique. The window display was a riot of colors, with mannequins dressed in outfits that seemed to defy gravity and good taste. I raised an eyebrow, skeptical, but Sarah just laughed and dragged me inside. The store was a treasure trove of eccentricity, with clothes that seemed to have been designed by a madman on a sugar high. Sarah navigated the racks with the ease of a seasoned pro, pulling out outfits that made me blush and laugh in equal measure. I tried on a few, feeling like a completely different person with each new ensemble. The mirrors reflected a man I hadn't seen in years, a man who was carefree and confident, with a spark in his eye that I thought had been extinguished forever. As I struck a pose in front of the mirror, wearing a bright orange shirt with yellow polka dots, Sarah clapped her hands in glee. "That's the one," she exclaimed. "You look like $1,000,000. I grinned, feeling like a kid on Christmas morning. "You know, I think I'm starting to get the hang of this whole painting the town red thing," I said, adjusting the collar of the shirt. Sarah chuckled and handed me a pair of sunglasses. "Now, let's add the finishing touches," she said. I put on the shades, feeling like a rock star, and we set out into the night, ready to take on the world. As we walked, the city came alive around us, the sounds and smells of the nightlife blending together in a heady cocktail. We passed by street performers and vendors, each one adding to the vibrant tapestry of the evening. I felt like a kid in a candy store, my eyes wide with wonder, as Sarah led me from one amazing experience to the next. We stopped at a street corner, where a group of musicians were playing a lively set. The music was infectious, and before I knew it, I was dancing in the middle of the sidewalk, spinning and twirling to the beat. Sarah joined in, and together we laughed and spun, our feet moving in perfect sync. As the music faded away, I turned to Sarah, grinning from ear to ear. "This is the most fun I've had in years," I said, feeling like I was walking on air. Sarah smiled, her eyes sparkling with amusement. "I'm just getting started," she said, winking at me. "The night is still young, and we have a lot more to explore." I raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "What's next?" I asked, my curiosity piqued. Sarah just laughed and took my hand, leading me into the unknown. "You'll see," she said, her voice full of mystery. "Just trust me, and enjoy the ride." As we walked away from the street corner, the sounds of the musicians faded into the distance, replaced by the hum of the city at night. The brand tapestry of the evening was still unfolding before my eyes, a kaleidoscope of colors, sounds, and sensations that left me breathless and wanting more. I felt like a kid in a candy store, my senses on high alert, as Sarah led me through the winding streets, taking me on a wild adventure. "What's next?" I asked again, my curiosity getting the better of me. Sarah just smiled and squeezed my hand, her eyes glinting with mischief. "Patience, my friend," she said, her voice low and husky. "All will be revealed in due time." I couldn't help but feel a thrill of excitement at her words. There was something about Sarah that drew me in, something that made me want to trust her, to follow her wherever she led. I pushed aside the doubts that lingered in the back of my mind, the ones that told me I was being reckless, that I barely knew this woman. But as I looked into her eyes, I saw something there that made me feel like I could trust her with my life. As we turned a corner, I caught sight of a small, unassuming door tucked away between two larger buildings. The door was painted a deep, rich blue, and it looked like it hadn't been opened in years. Sarah stopped in front of the door, a smile spreading across her face. "Welcome to the secret garden," she said, her voice full of whimsy. I raised an eyebrow, my inner monologue going into overdrive. What was this place? A secret garden? It sounded like something out of a fairy tale. But as Sarah pushed open the door, a warm, golden light spilled out, illuminating the dark street. I felt a shiver run down my spine as I stepped through the doorway, leaving the city behind and entering a world that was entirely new and unknown. "Wow," I breathed, my eyes widening as I took in the sights and sounds of the secret garden. The air was filled with the scent of flowers, and the sound of soft music drifted through the air. The room was filled with people, all of them dressed in costume, their faces painted with intricate designs. It was like stepping into a dream world, one that was full of magic and wonder. Sarah took my hand, leading me deeper into the garden. "This is a place where anything can happen," she said, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "A place where the ordinary rules don't apply, and the impossible becomes possible." I felt my heart racing as I looked around, taking it all in. I had no idea what to expect, but I was ready for whatever came next. I was ready to let go of my inhibitions, to throw caution to the wind and see where the night took me. As I looked into Sarah's eyes, I knew that I was in for the ride of my life. "Let's do it," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Sarah grinned, her eyes glinting with mischief. "Oh, we're just getting started," she said, her voice full of promise. And with that, she pulled me deeper into the secret garden, into a world of wonder and magic, where anything was possible.